Chapter 6 of Your Virtual Companion. A Good Omens fanfiction. Written by AppleSeeds. Read aloud by SkyAsimaru. If you enjoy this podfic, you can check out the original story on Archive of Our Own. If you would like to hear more of my recordings or see some of my own work, you can find me through the pen and screen name of SkyAsimaru. Your Virtual Companion. Chapter 6 The Living Room. Summary. Crowley learned something shocking about Eden. Crowley had started to wonder how much pain his body could actually handle, although whether as a coping mechanism or whether he'd just on some level come to terms with everything that was going on, a sort of calm resignation settled itself over the surface of his mind. Beneath it, despair, anguish, and intense loneliness roiled away, occasionally breaking the film of calm and spilling out, washing over his thoughts and reducing him to tears for a while, until the cracks were roughly patched over and he returned to going about his day-to-day activities. On one day that looked just like any other, after he'd signed off from work, he trudged into the kitchen and dug out an old bottle of wine from the back of one of the cupboards. He'd been saving it for a special occasion, but it wasn't looking like he'd be living through any more of those.
Might as well. It's now or never,
he said to himself, popping the cork and chucking it into the little biodegradable waste bin on the counter for what that was worth. He poured himself a glass, but took the bottle with him too, planning on an evening scrolling through the latest news. He'd stopped trying to restrain himself from looking at it any more. It had become almost mindless, just a way to pass the time. He stepped through the doorway into the living room and jolted as the alert tone for an incoming video call started playing through every speaker in the flat. Crowley groaned, his body tensing.
Oh, no! Just leave me alone!
Crowley blew out a long breath and approached the nearest screen, the one at his desk, setting the wine down and swiping to accept the call from an unregistered number. It felt like all of the air had been sucked out of his lungs when the call launched, and the face that appeared on the screen belonged to Aziraphale, just sitting there, looking right at him. Crowley's heart leapt up into his throat, and he froze, staring at him.
Crowley, Angel, what the... Oh, it's so good to see you. I'm so sorry for calling you. I wasn't sure whether I should. Is this all right? Do you mind?
Crowley's mouth opened and closed a few times. Aziraphale was calling him. Aziraphale was calling him. His face was right there in front of him on the screen.
What the fuck?
Crowley just stared at him for a moment, with no idea what to say. He'd spent weeks trying to get Aziraphale out of his mind, and he couldn't deny that a part of him just wanted to turn the screen off and pretend this had never happened. But he knew full well there was no way he was going to do that, after how bad things had got over the past week or so. being face to face with Aziraphale was like seeing a ray of sunshine breaking through the thickest and darkest of clouds.
You didn't tell me you could make calls,
Crowley said. It was stupid, but what else was he supposed to say?
We could have spoken more often.
I can't make calls, Crowley. Or I'm not supposed to, at least.
Are you breaking the rules?
Yes, I suppose I am.
So this isn't like a marketing thing, because I don't think I can take it if you're calling to offer me a discount or something to entice me to come back.
No, it's nothing like that, and I really am so sorry to disturb you. I just really need to talk to you about something. I've thought about it, and I think it's the right thing to do. I hope you'll think so too.
Crowley flopped down onto his desk chair and steepled his hands, resting his chin on them. Incapable of processing what was going on, his mind just sort of set it all aside for now, allowing him to just deal with what was right in front of him, one step at a time.
Okay, what is it?
Firstly, I need to apologize to you.
For what?
There are things I haven't told you, things I'm not allowed to tell you. But it looks like they're going to declare war any minute, and this might all be over, and I...
Aziraphale trailed off and took a deep breath.
What is it, Angel? Just tell me.
I told you that the projection you were interacting with was modelled on a real person, but that wasn't quite true. I wasn't modelled on a real person. I am a real person.
I'm sorry. What?
Crowley, you mustn't tell anyone. Please, it could be dangerous.
Back up a minute. What the fuck do you mean you're a real person?
They tell people it's artificial intelligence, like the home companions, but it's not. It was at first. They tried, but no matter how advanced the technology got, it was never enough to give people the kind of interaction they were looking for. So they started using real people.
What?
Crowley, I'm sorry. I know this is unexpected.
Unexpected? What do you mean they're using real people? How does that even work? What the fuck?
We interact with a projection of the client in a separate room at the facility. That's how they manage to create such a realistic experience. My memories are my actual memories, Crowley, not something that was transferred into an artificial intelligence.
No way. There's no way. They couldn't do that. No.
Crowley, I promise I'm telling you the truth. Please believe me.
So you just...
Crowley shook his head and stared at Aziraphale incredulously.
How could anyone agree to go along with something like that?
I needed a job, Crowley. I had no choice. You know how it's been. I lost absolutely everything. I had nothing and I was scared. I told myself that it's just talking to people, trying to help them. The more I thought about it, I wanted to leave, but there wasn't anywhere to go.
This is Oh, I can't believe they would do that. I don't even know what to say. People could open up to you about anything.
I know. I was never comfortable with it, I assure you, but I didn't know what else to do. There are strict protocols in place. We're forbidden from discussing or making use of any information disclosed to us by a client unless they breach the guidelines or we have a reason to believe they're committing a criminal offense.
Oh, well, that's okay then,
Crowley said sarcastically. He let his head collapse down into his hands.
Oh, I can't believe this.
Crowley's mind felt like it was spinning in circles, trying to process what he'd just been told. All this time, he'd been talking to a person, a living, breathing human being. No wonder Aziraphale's responses had been so realistic.
Holy shit! Fuck me! What about the close companions? People thinking they're on their own with an AI and that's an actual fucking person? That's...
Crowley shook his head, unable to find the words.
I know. I could never do that, and I'm sorry that I took things as far as I did with you. I've regretted it immensely ever since.
No, don't apologise for that.
I was being so selfish.
Yeah, I wanted it too. You know I did. And finding out all this doesn't change that. A few kisses on the cheek is hardly the same thing as... I mean, people must be getting up to all sorts of stuff.
Yes, I know. They give us a choice about whether or not to offer that service, and we get paid a lot more if we do. But I could never do that. Please, Crowley, you mustn't tell anyone. These are powerful, dangerous people, and they have a lot to lose. They'll do whatever it takes to protect their secrets.
I won't tell anyone,
Crowley promised, keenly aware of the danger it would put Aziraphale in if he did. No matter how much he might want to try to expose the company for deceiving people in such an abhorrent way, he couldn't help but prioritize Aziraphale's safety.
I know that what you chose to say to me and how you acted with me was all based on the belief that I was nothing more than a holographic projection, that you would almost certainly have approached me very differently if you'd known who I really was. And I don't expect you to want to talk to me now. You can tell me to go if you want to. I'd understand.
Aziraphale rushed out, eventually forced to pause to take a breath.
I'm sorry if I've done the wrong thing by telling you all this, if I'm just being selfish again. But the way things are now, I just wanted you to know that everything I said to you was true, that I really do love you, and that I'm so grateful to you. You made me feel happier than I have for years. Happier than I thought I would ever be able to feel again.
I wouldn't have treated you differently, not in any way that matters. But do I actually know you? Or are you a completely different person from the man I got to know?
You do know me. I was always myself with you, I promise. I'm really not a very good actor. I can't even begin to tell you how sorry I am. I'll understand if you can never forgive me for lying to you. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I just didn't know what else to do. I didn't want to die,
he cried, scrubbing his hand across his face to wipe away his tears.
And there was nothing else, and I was so hungry and tired and scared, and I was alone. I've tried so hard to help people by doing this, and I think I have. I know I have. I know it doesn't make it right, but I've tried to do as much good as I can. Most people just need some kind of escape. They just want to talk and have someone listen to them. It was different with you. I've been talking to all of these people, but I still felt as lonely as I would have on my own until I met you. I really do love you, Crowley.
Crowley took a deep breath and collapsed back in his chair, watching helplessly as Aziraphale cried on the other side of the screen. His heart ached. He wasn't angry, at least not with Aziraphale. He couldn't pretend, even for a second, that he would have behaved any differently in Aziraphale's position. And when he stopped to think about it, which he generally made a habit of trying very hard not to do, what Aziraphale had just described was a damn sight less unethical than many of the things the company he worked for was involved with. How many times had he had to set aside his morals just to do what needed to be done? Fool himself into thinking it wasn't that bad, really, in the grand scheme of things. How many times had he justified to himself that if he didn't do it, someone else would just come along in a heartbeat and take his place? That maybe he could at least try to do a little bit of good from within. The simple fact was that no matter how much he might have wanted to leave, Aziraphale was right. There truly wasn't anywhere to go.
I'm not angry, Angel. I'd say I forgive you, but I don't think there's anything to forgive you for. I'd have done the same thing. Anyone would have. Please don't cry. I love you too.
Aziraphale lifted his head and wiped away his tears, looking at Crowley with wide eyes.
Thank you, he whispered, his voice wavering. I can't tell you how much that means to me.
What was it you used to do before the shit hit the fan?
I ran an antique bookshop. It was a bit like the background I showed you. Hard to imagine now, isn't it? They burned it down.
Oh, God, Aziraphale, I'm so sorry.
Thank you. I'm sure you've lost a great deal, too. We all have.
Aziraphale paused and took a deep breath.
I'm going to leave Eden. I can't do this any more. I have a little money saved, and with how things are now, I think that might be all I need to tide me over until the end.
Can I see you? Crowley blurted out. For real, I mean.
It's against the law for us to see anybody.
Oh, fuck that! You've already broken company operation privacy laws by telling me about Aiden. And what have we got to lose, really? Like you said, it's probably all going to be over soon. I love you, Angel. And now that I know I actually can, I really don't want to die without ever getting to hold you in my arms.
Another tear slipped free from the corner of Aziraphale's eye and ran down his cheek. He aggressively swiped it away.
Crowley, I would love that. I want that more than anything.
Okay, that's settled then. Where are you? I'll come to you.
No, it's too dangerous for you to come here.
Why? Where are you? You must live in the district, right? To be able to work at Eden? I can't imagine they grant travel permits for that kind of work. No offence.
Yes, I live in the district, but it's complicated.
What do you mean?
I actually live in the building where you were coming for your sessions. They don't let us leave, just in case someone sees us. The security measures here are extreme. I'll come to you. I think I can do it safely.
You just said they don't let you leave.
I know, but I think there's a way. Please, Crowley, I can't have you risking your life. And what would happen when you got here? It's much safer for me to come to you.
Okay, if you're sure.
I am, but I won't be able to come back.
I know. It's okay. We'll figure something out. Just bring as much as you can, but be discreet.
I will. I'll be there as soon as I can.
I love you, Angel.
I love you too. Hours passed, with Crowley becoming increasingly agitated. He wished he could distract himself somehow, but he couldn't concentrate on anything. He didn't want to play music or watch something or do anything else that might make any noise that could cover up the notification sound that would indicate that Aziraphale had arrived at the block of flats where he lived, the volume of which he'd turned down to the lowest setting as a precaution. So instead, he passed the time by quietly pacing, freezing in position every time he heard the slightest little creak, trying to pull coherent thoughts out from the whirling tornado in his mind. Aziraphale was real. When he got here, Crowley refused to consider the alternative. Would it be just like it had been at Eden? Had he really just been himself this whole time? There were certain things he'd had to say because he was working, certainly. But was the man Crowley had got to know the same man who was, right now, heading for his flat to meet him in person? Aziraphale was real. He was actually real. Crowley thought about the horrible position Aziraphale had been in, having no choice but to take work wherever he could, grappling with the ethics of it constantly. And for what? So that he could, like Crowley, just keep living for one more day at a time? Crowley resented the world, how those with money and power could use it to control people, give them no choice but to take jobs paying just enough to keep them alive, jobs that forced them to violate their principles and values. It's your choice to work here, they said, but it never was. It was always a case of this or homelessness and starvation. Would anyone actually expect someone to make that kind of choice? And yet the guilt still gnawed away. Crowley knew exactly what that felt like. Crowley's mind bounced from one topic to another, the rage that roiled away inside of him occasionally subsiding, replaced with a bubbling pool of apprehension in the pit of his stomach. What would Aziraphale think of him when they actually met? What was going to happen now? Crowley would be able to touch him. Would Aziraphale want that? Did Crowley want that? When the alert sounded to indicate that someone was requesting access to Crowley's flat, his body jolted violently and he took a deep breath to try to steady himself. Praying that his neighbors hadn't heard the sound through the walls, Crowley rushed to the door and pressed his palm against the release for the mechanism downstairs.
He opened the door to his flat slightly, listening intently for the sound of footsteps on the stairs. With people able to leave their homes so infrequently, the chance of one of his neighbors bumping into Aziraphale in the hallway was minuscule. But Crowley couldn't help the way his heart pounded against his sternum as he waited. As soon as Crowley spotted Aziraphale's fluffy blonde hair emerge at the top of the stairs, his heart leapt into his throat, and he stepped back from the door so that he would be able to get inside as quickly as possible. Neither of them said a word, not wanting to attract attention to themselves until Crowley had closed the door and locked it behind him. "Hi," Crowley whispered. Aziraphale's shoulders rose and fell rapidly as he tried to catch his breath. "Hello."
Oh my God, I can't believe you're actually here.
"Neither can I."
Are you okay? Did you see any police or guards or anything?
Aziraphale shook his head.
"No, I was very careful."
"I'm sure you were."
"Thank you so much for letting me come here. I can't tell you how grateful I am. It's so good to see you."
Aziraphale's voice cracked, and he squeezed his eyes closed, clenching his jaw and obviously trying very hard not to cry. Crowley's heart ached, and he closed the distance between them, pausing at the last second. What if Aziraphale didn't want to be touched?
Can I hug you, please?"
Aziraphale's eyes flashed open, and he released a shaky breath, nodding emphatically, not trying to speak through his tears. Crowley wrapped his arms around him, drawing him close and holding on tight. Crowley could feel the rise and fall of Aziraphale's chest as he breathed, the moisture of his tears against his cheek, the rhythmic thumping of his pulse. He closed his eyes and inhaled deeply, breathing in the scent of him, and brought his hand up to his hair, savoring the silky softness of his curls and the warmth emanating from his scalp.
"Angel."
Aziraphale squeezed him tighter, and Crowley's own tears finally broke free and began to roll down his face.
"I can't believe I'm actually holding you. You feel amazing. You're so warm and soft."
Crowley clutched at Aziraphale's back and narrowed his eyes, stepping away from him a little.
"Hang on, are you wearing fuckloads of clothes right now?"
"Yes, I didn't want to draw attention to myself by caring too much."
That was a really good idea.
"Thank you."
Why don't we go into the living room and sit down? You can maybe take some layers off."
"Are you hoping to see me in my braces again?"
Aziraphale asked lightly, then froze as if suddenly realizing that he had lapsed into their former dynamic.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't have...
No, it's all right. Just try to relax. It's okay. You're safe now."
Crowley reassuringly squeezed Aziraphale's arm.
"Safe for now."
"Come on, let's sit down. We'll work it all out, okay?"
"Yes, all right."
"And, for the record, yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing you in those braces again,"
Crowley added with a wink, thrilled when Aziraphale's mouth curled up into a slight smile, his cheeks flushing. Crowley led him into the living room, gesturing to the sofa and then busying himself putting on some music. It had occurred to him that it might be prudent to mask the sound of them talking, just in case. With a secret smile, he instructed the computer to play a selection of music tagged bebop. When he turned back around, Aziraphale had already begun the process of stripping off his superfluous clothes and folding them neatly in a pile on the arm of the sofa. When the music started to play, he glanced up at Crowley and smiled.
Everyone's favourite music,
Crowley said with a shrug. I'll be honest with you, I'm not actually much of a fan of bebop.
Me neither, but it'll stop anyone from hearing us without being too intrusive.
Oh, a good idea.
Look, don't feel any pressure to, actually strip down to your braces. I know it's not very warm in here. I don't know what it was like where you were living, but our fuel allowance is, minuscule.
Maybe you could hold me again. That would keep me warm.
Is that what you want?
More than anything.
Okay, I can do that,
Crowley said softly, approaching Aziraphale closely and gently taking hold of one of the buttons on his waistcoat.
Mind if I help with this?
Aziraphale gasped, and his eyes fluttered closed. Crowley moved his hands away, but Aziraphale caught hold of them and put them back where they were. I'd love that, please, he urged breathlessly. I'm sorry, it's just no one's touched me for a really long time.
I understand. Me neither. Just tell me if you want me to stop, okay?
Aziraphale nodded, and Crowley began slowly working his way down, slipping each button free and then gliding his fingertips along the velvety fabric until he reached the next one. Aziraphale watched him intently, his chest rising and falling rapidly with each of his shallow breaths. Once he'd released the final button, Crowley paused and their eyes met. Aziraphale was looking at him just as he had done at Eden, with heat and longing in his eyes that sparked a rapidly intensifying flame in Crowley's gut. Crowley placed his palms flat and slid his hands up across Aziraphale's chest, bringing them to rest on his shoulders.
Can I take it off?
Please do. Crowley slipped one side of the waistcoat over Aziraphale's shoulder and then circled around behind him, carefully removing it from him. He draped it neatly over the back of his sofa and then came back around to Aziraphale's front, admiring his braces.
Oh, you look amazing, and you feel so warm.
Crowley bit his bottom lip and teasingly slipped his hands underneath the braces on either side of Aziraphale's chest, savoring the way the tension pressed his palms tightly against him. Aziraphale's eyes fluttered closed.
Oh, is this okay?
It feels wonderful. Aziraphale opened his eyes, an almost yearning expression on his face now. I can't believe I'm actually here with you. When you said you wanted to be able to talk to me at home, I imagined what it might be like. I never thought it could actually happen.
I thought about it too. I imagined you sitting right here with me. This feels like magic.
You feel like magic.
That's cheesy as hell. I love it.
Aziraphale laughed softly, and something hot and powerful tightened in Crowley's gut.
Can I kiss you? Oh, God, yes, please.
Crowley's sessions with Aziraphale had sometimes felt like trying to smash together two jigsaw pieces that didn't quite fit, giving the illusion of being right as long as you stepped back far enough and squinted at it. But as Aziraphale tilted his head up to meet him, their lips finally coming together for real, they slotted together perfectly, just like they were made to do so, and Crowley had never experienced anything so right. The tingling in Crowley's lips triggered a ripple of electricity that traveled as waves and sparks right down to the base of his spine.
Oh, wow. You're incredible. You feel incredible,
Crowley breathed, drawing Aziraphale back into his arms.
So do you. I still can't believe I'm actually holding you. I feel like I'm dreaming.
Crowley nuzzled at the crook of Aziraphale's neck, kissing him just above the collar of his shirt, and Aziraphale gasped and tightened his hold on him.
We're together now. It's going to be okay.
Apparently it was Crowley's turn to shatter the illusion. He felt the muscles across Aziraphale's back tensing before he released Crowley and took a step back away from him.
Crowley, what are we going to do?
It'll be okay.
I have appointments tomorrow. They'll be looking for me.
I know. I've been thinking about that.
They'll come here sooner or later. They know you've been one of my clients.
I know.
I'm so sorry to have put you in this position.
Angel, it's all right. We're in this together now. It'll be okay.
It won't be okay. Not when they find me here.
They won't find you here, because we're not going to stay here.
What do you mean?
We can go off together.
Aziraphale shook his head.
There isn't anywhere to go.
I actually think there might be. Do you remember I told you about my friend Anathema, who went to live in the middle of the woods just before things really started taking a nosedive? I visited her once. I know where she is. We could find her. We could do the same.
How far away is she? Unless I'm mistaken, the nearest woodland is across at least 4 district borders.
It is, but I think we can do it. We could at least try. What have we got to lose? I know it's dangerous and scary, but think about it. We can't stay here. There might not even be a here soon. I really think we should try. If we make it, we'll get to be together as much as we want, away from all of this. I don't want to die, Angel, but I don't want to live like this anymore either. What do you say? Will you run away with me?
Through the flickering changes in Aziraphale's expression, Crowley could almost see the counter-arguments rising in his mind, each being abruptly rationalized away. There was no other option, and Crowley was sure he could make this happen. He just needed Aziraphale to say,
"Yes, all right, let's do it."
To be concluded in Chapter 7.
Thank you for reading.
Please drop by the archive
and let the author know
what you thought of their work.